So your first question seems to want the reader to answer the question from the perspective of being a president. So looking at this from a presidential point of view leaves me in kind of a torn state. Overall, I think most of the time a president can be more effective and efficient by directly addressing the masses. I say this because it allows the president to frame information in a way that they come out looking more favorable. Does a president desire information to appear favorable for the people or for them personally? And it appears that the most effective politicians, the ones that ascend to presidency, are the ones that have the ability to manipulate information consistently in favor of themselves. And that's just how politics works in general. So if I'm the president, why should I not directly address Americans, especially in 2019? On the other hand, the media can be a president's friend, but you wouldn't know that by our current president. If you become respectful associates with the media, then they can frame information in your favor without you having to do anything besides nurturing that relationship through mutual respect. And I'm saying the relationship between the president and the media. I do not think the media wants to automatically oppose the president, but the current presidential regime has incited a war with the media, so of course the media is not framing news in Trump's favor. And why should they? In a different reality, with a different president, we could see a mutually beneficial relationship between them and the media. Then everyone could win in a sense. But that's just not the way that Trump decided to do his term. And although I understand why he and even Roosevelt felt that the best way to spread information was straight from them, I can see that Trump and Roosevelt are very different in many ways, but they shared this common strategy of using new technology to their advantage. Trump is to social media what Roosevelt was to the radio with his Fireside broadcasts. Obviously, the difference was that Roosevelt was responsible and saved only the most important items for those radio broadcasts. He only had 30 of them over his 11 years or whatever it was to spread his policies and truths. And that's much different than Trump. So to answer the original question, America is constantly changing, and the changes to a modern technologically advanced world changes the answer to your question. I think Roosevelt was much more effective than Trump in directly addressing the public, partially due to the differences of living in the 30s to the present day. Now we consume everything rapidly, everything meaning information and news. That leaves Trump's margin for error much smaller than Roosevelt's was. In other words, Trump has a much greater chance of failing because he tweets 8 times a day, compared to Roosevelt averaging only 3 of those fireside chats per year. So that's a huge difference in numbers. So I understand them wanting to directly address Americans. It kind of gives them that personal feel. It makes Americans feel important because the president feels the need to directly talk to them. So in a way, it's a political strategy. Even if it's not the only way of doing things, it is often an effective way in politics to do that. So for the second question, I think this is a great question to ponder. Thinking about this in a purely logical sense would make one believe that hearing directly from the president would be the purest and most effective form of consumption for Americans. I tend to believe the opposite to be true for numerous reasons. First, the president, in essence, is the most biased source on any matter because they have the biggest agenda and image to withhold. So if a president changes policy or attempts to, would they not frame it in a way that Americans would find it appealing in a beneficial way for that president? In life, in overall, it's almost never smart to listen to the direct source on any matter, because they will nearly always have the strongest bias towards the perspective that supports their image. And that's all I'm trying to say, is that presidents have a strong incentive to frame the news to support their beliefs and policies by highlighting their own positive attributes while also highlighting the worst features of their opposition. So when we hear from the media, we are consuming the news from a source one step removed from the primary source. While personally, I do not think American media is reliable, it is still smarter to consume information from them compared to hearing it directly from the president. The president is not tied to the true truth, rather a truth that supports them as favorably as possible. And one could argue the same about the media too, which is a big issue in America. Where is the truth actually? Nobody really has a reason to tell the actual truth, rather than it's smarter for them to just tell the truth that benefits them most personally, as I was mentioning. So that means that Americans just have to be aware that the media has their own political biases that affects how they frame information, just like the president does. So to take a step back, your question was asking about the media entirely. And I would say that the media is definitely more helpful compared to the harm it inflicts. For example, the media, along with advances in technology, is the reason we have the ability to consume information so much more efficiently than we have ever had before. The media follows news stories in a real-time manner with the goal of pushing the information out to the public as fast as possible so that the public can make their own opinions on that information. It's a great benefit to Americans to have such an attentive media industry, because increasing knowledge is always a good thing, no matter what. Americans are more knowledgeable than ever before, in large part due to the media. I'm not saying that Americans always use that knowledge wisely, but at least having that knowledge is a step in the direction towards a wiser society. As long as one uses the media effectively by viewing the same news stories through multiple media sources, then it's a great benefit to the American public. To further argue that sentiment, the media serves as a sort of check or overseer for the president and the government's actions as well. It's essential for democracy to have an outside entity checking the actions of the government to prevent corruption. For example, corrupt communist governments maintain control over their masses by controlling the media. The U.S. does well by allowing multiple viewpoints in the media to serve as the foundation for critical debates between Americans. We would be less free as a nation, in a way, if the media was controlled, censoring our ability to discern the true nature of our government. And for that reason, I think the media, our media, the American media, is very helpful to the American public, for the reason that the media informs us of news and information in a timely fashion, and the media also, as I said, serves as a kind of a check for the government and the president, so that they don't become corrupt and too powerful and do things off the record or behind the curtains. The media kind of gives us that ability to keep their actions accountable.